So I'm not going to lie about this one to make friends. This one was a struggle. I've made it a Chacho version. I'm stealing somebody else's work. So you can't actually see it. That scared me. Who doesn't decorate the inside of their toilets? Not me. Engages with the chain lift, right? So that's the thing that has the pointy sticky dowty thing, which is the technical term. Let's get this over and done with so I can go to bed. 48 hours, guys. 48 hours. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for coming along to episode number 8 of ChachoLandia. And wow, I can't believe that it's episode number 8. It feels like it's been running for so much longer. And we've also just had a bank holiday here, and the summer's kicked in. It's been sunny, it's been warm, it's been lovely. So I'm sure by Sunday it's now going to be raining again and everything's going to have gone back to how it was. But hey, we had fun whilst it lasted. So thank you so much for all of your responses and everything for the last episode. You absolutely blow me away with everything that you do. Your likes, your comments, your suggestions, everything. Absolutely love them. Thank you so much. And this is where we're focusing our episode then. We're going to be on the back end here now. I wonder if you know what's going to go in here. Yeah, of course it was going to be a log flume. You guys called this last week. It was a toss-up between this and the water coaster, particularly as this park would have opened in 2015. It was like, well, log flumes are a bit outdated. They're falling out of fashion. But yeah, it's a western area. It's always going to be a log flume. And so I've got some interesting facts for you, but they are a little bit hard to come by because we're decommissioning a lot of log flumes in the UK, so we don't have much documentation that's available. We've got a few. But let's go for a tour anyway, and I'll give you some of those interesting facts. So, we're going to start in the station, and then we're going to meander ourselves around the actual terrain itself. So this is very, very, very much inspired by the Gardaland log flume, because it's one of the only flumes that we still have in existence. And did you know, by the way, that log flume started life as a transport method to get logs down a hill? So what they do is they transfer logs by building these water channels that take all of the logs down to the actual mill itself, and then people wanted to ride it. They thought it was going to be fun, so that's where the idea of a log flume actually came from. And also, the longest one of these channels was 62 miles long. That's massive, right? That's absolutely massive. And so anyway, this is this idea, like they replicated it to say, this drop here that you've got is supposed to mimic it going down the hill, and then it raises up through terrain and stuff. So this is the idea of an entire log flume. So anyway, just thought I'd break away and tell you that. So we come around this bend, we come into the first incline. Now this is where we're going to put all of the water pumping facilities, and unlike the rapids, you don't need a reservoir as such because we've got the lake here. So I don't need an artificial reservoir, but you would still have some kind of small water treatment and some kind of pumping facilities and everything, but it's nowhere near as intense as a rapids. This log flume would probably have about 500,000 gallons of water. It's not a massive amount, and the pumps themselves, rather than the rapids being one massive behemoth of a pump, these log flumes would use smaller pumps. And so you tend to find that the pumps would be sitting at the top of these drops, and then it would just, gravity does the rest in the channel, right? So we're going to come down the first drop then, and then we're going to enter into a bit of a windy, twisty thing. And if I come down here, it's on an angle. It's on a decline angle. So that's so that you can keep the water from moving, or it keeps the water moving through the channels. But wherever it straightens out, you actually level it out as well. So this is like a 2-degree decline, and then it levels out when it's straight here. It levels out when it's straight here, and of course it levels out when it's straight here. And you do that so that you can control the speed of the boats down the incline, because if it was a constant incline, it would just keep gathering speed, and eventually you're going to get down here and it's going to be dangerous. So you always have some kind of level ground so that you can actually control the speed of the boats. Now, this doesn't really play out in Planet Coaster. The speed of the actual boats are quite well controlled, but that's what we're doing here. And then because we've got this as being the lowest point of the ride, this overlaps the channel so that all of the water that's flowing down here is actually, it can overflow and it just flows back into the river and it doesn't cause much of a problem. Whereas up here, I've included some kind of barriers to stop the water from actually flowing over the edge. So you tend to find that on a bend like this, you'd have water peaking here, and then it would flow back and it would peak here, and then it flows back again and peaks here. So it sort of like follows a flow. And remember that water will always find its lowest point. And so that's what it's doing here. So to try and conserve... it's not very good at doing that. I've just spotted the splash going over the top. Well done. Good design work. So anyway, so you've just got this idea of saving as much water from leaving the channel as you possibly can, and that's what we're doing here. But when it comes to this point here, it doesn't matter that the water's going to be overflowing and everything, because it's just going to go back into the lake, and then it would get pumped out from this lake into this area at the top here where the water comes through. This area at the top here where the water comes through, and then back up to the station where it then takes part of this, takes care of this bit. And then of course the channel in this bit is actually independent of the lake, so any of the water that comes from the top here comes down into the splash zone and then continues through the channel into the station itself. So you're not actually causing any kind of water loss at that point. Now we have a central a central reservoir where all of the water is stored. So when the ride is not in operation, all the water would find its lowest point, and that lowest point is this area here, and of course it would flood all of the channels and stuff that's going on in that area. And I've also decided to line half of the whole reservoir with a concrete wall, which I'm going to obviously make foliage and everything for, and then half of it with actual rock work, because this would be the guest view, right? So you want to try and make it as much look as good as possible. Now I'm reserving this area back here because of course when we started the series we said that in this area here it was going to be a maintenance area. This is where all the offices and everything were going to be, and we've actually ended up putting a coaster there, so I still need to reserve this space. But I've also got something else that's coming that is going to require a little bit of space in this area as well. So that's a future episode. That's a future problem. So that's pretty much the layout, how it looks at the moment. I'm going to carry on building so I can show you some more stuff. So let's see how that all turns out. So a little bit more put together than perhaps it would normally be, but I wanted to have actual things to talk to you about. And we're going to keep those log flume facts coming. And that's the fifth take of saying that, because it's actually quite difficult to say. And yes, of course, you've probably already spotted we're robbing somebody else's log flume. It's Cardland this time. So I love Colorado Boat, right? So I've done loads and loads and loads of work on making the ride come together and making it a ChachoLandia log flume, but also following a lot of the design principles that Colorado Boat at Gardaland has got. So the station is very, very similar. The queue layout is very similar. I'm still toying with the idea of whether I want to have queue covers along here, but I actually quite like it being as an exposed queue. So I need to play it out and see how it goes. Just to introduce these two here, so I've moved our spinner, our twister ride, scissor ride, whatever you want to call it. I've moved that back, and I've also introduced an insanity ride. It felt like we needed another thrill ride in this area. It's relatively close to the front of the park, and we want to sort of absorb as many crowds as we possibly can. That and the fact that in game this log flume is going to get quite a big queue. So I'm now starting to think about logistics and guests flow and everything. So we've got two mop-up rides that's going to help us take this, right? So inside the station, I haven't done any detailing at all from Thememaker's Toolkit perspective, because I'm aware that when I do these updates, I've sometimes already detailed the Thememaker's Toolkit. So I want to actually do a big reveal that shows you going from bland with no Thememaker's Toolkit to how it can bring it to life, right? Because you guys ask me to do builds without Thememaker's Toolkit all the time, so I'm kind of wanting to do that in this station to show you this is what the station would look like without the toolkit, and the final update is what it would look like with. So yeah, we've got this cattle pen queue. The actual path itself is my usual trick. So if I just bring the UI back for a second and I move this out of the way, you can see that it's just one big pad, right? And you can see everything that I've attached to that building. Quick, don't look, it's spoilers. So you can see that the pad covers all of the misdemeanors. I always use custom fencing when I do my queue lines, and then I've just used the mulch to line the outside of the path, and also some kind of concrete to create an outer curb, and that's how I get my paths to look like the way they do. Like that's how they look, like they belong together in one, because they do, right? That's how it goes. And so then we come into the actual ride area itself. So I've put the photo booth down. I have done some TMTK stuff in here, but I haven't done the fine details. You know what they're going to look like. We'll do that at the final reveal. It's like every episode we do a ride booth. So we're going to come around the first corner, and then I've started this process of how I want the theming. So I want two distinct areas of of this ride. I want it to go through a western village, but a really loosely detailed western village. We're not going to spend millions and millions on this. It's a log flume. So we're just going to have like fascias. So I need to detail the fascias, but I've just started to put down the shapes of the building, and I want it to go through a little bit of the desert. And then when it goes through this way, it's almost like it's heading towards the mountains. So we're going to go through some wooded area here, and then we're going to come underneath what's essentially a mountain. But I don't want to, again, make too much of a big deal about this mountain because it just looks like a pile of rocks at the moment. And that's kind of what I'm going for. I don't want it to be spectacular. I don't want it to be this awesome log flume. I want it to be a bit tacky. It kind of feels like that's how ChachoLandia would do it. Like, because it's a log flume, like all of the money is spent on the big rides, the big roller coasters, and the log flume is kind of like it's a supporting attraction, and they're going to make some kind of an effort, but not too much of an effort. So anyway, you're going to come through this mountain, and I've laid out, you can't really see it because of the water, but I've laid out a channel and put some pipes and everything in there. So it's an actual working channel. And then inside here it's a bit more of a cave. So this side, I'm hoping you can see it on the video. You can see that I've actually got some walls and there's some water flowing down the side. But then this side, I've brought the cave wall back so that the water is actually running down on the inside. So you're not only you going through the mountain, you're going through a wall of water, and then you get met with this wall of water, and so you're definitely going to get wet on this log flume. There's no question about that. And then I've added in this bit here, so like the drop, and then this like tunnel bit. And I've also, I'm sorry, I'm stalling because I've got something to show you, right? But I'm not doing a very good job of my commentary. This is what I'm going to show you. There you go. So it's just the water that comes from the water tower. You've seen it before when I did it with Reigate Lake, and I don't know why I'm making such a big deal of it this time. But here's some interesting facts for you. So log flume channels, they tend not to be concrete, unlike rapids, right? So you hide them very differently, if at all. So down here, I've not made any attempt to hide them. They're just going to go through the foliage and the trees and everything, because they are typically made out of metal or plastic. So you just sort of throw them around, and the channel is very visible and very much on view. But down here I've made an effort to hide it with a bit of mulch and put that actually into the ground. So it's just a way of showing you that you can hide it if you want to, but log flume channels tend not to be. And have you noticed as well that I've put in those weird little clip things along here? So log flume boats, they are weighted so that they don't actually capsize in the water. They have quite a lot of buoyancy to them. And these little clips, they are spaced about every one boat down the lift hill. And this is the effective equivalent of anti-rollbacks that you find on roller coasters. Now, there is a risk of boats that will topple backwards depending on weight distribution. It is a possibility that that could happen. It's very rare, and there are of course things in place to stop that from happening, like these anti-rollbacks and everything, but it is a possibility that it actually could happen. And of course, when you get to, we were talking about the actual theme earlier on, and we were talking about the history of these log flumes and everything. The one thing I did forget to tell you is that at the end of a log flume, you would tend to find that the water that runs off of the channel would actually power some kind of a water mill. And that's why you find that a lot of log flumes are themed around water mills, because that would typically be at the end of the channels that would be carrying all of those logs around. And so then this flume ride itself is going to then come around the actual lake. I don't know if I'm going to put a water feature in here yet. It feels like this is a bit bland and a bit dead. But I wanted a space that all of this water that's meeting its lowest level would actually be able to fall into the lake with no problem. The same principle I did with Reigate Lake. Then you're going to come up the lift hill, and then it's going to come around the bend and down here. And in case you are wondering, this drop is the same height as the one at Thorpe Park was. Logger's Leap. Oh, rest in peace, Logger's Leap. Loved that log flume. And memories. But the difference is this is just a straight down drop rather than a tampered drop, where it comes down as like we call it a kamikaze drop, but that's not quite right, and it's probably not politically correct either. But that's what we call it. That's how it is. It's just the shape of the drop. It comes into the splash zone down the bottom here. Now, I'm not going to make an effort to hide the splash zone because I'm a rebel, and I'm going to stick with that. So there. No, I did think about putting rocks and everything around it like I would normally do, but it just didn't feel right. So I've just left it as it is. I could actually take away the splash zone completely and just have it as a normal log flume drop, but I quite like the splash zone, so I'm just going to keep that as it is. And then the last thing to show you then is just around this area here. I've just put in some water towers, some water treatment pumps and everything. There's nothing special about them. They are technically functional in the game. They're as close as I'm going to get to things like water towers and stuff. Yeah, these are just art shapes, and the cage ladders, these are just some lights that I found on the workshop. Then, of course, you've seen these already. These are the air conditioning units and stuff. And then these are the same pumps that I've dragged across from the Rapids ride. And then you've just got some electric cables and cabinets and everything in here where you'd find all of your electrics, right? So just keeping that in mind. And then just some clutter and the electric substations here. And then they're all set aside from the ride. So that's where we're going. So I just need to finish off all the details, and I will see you for the big reveal. Alright then, you guys, so the Done For Now stamp is coming out purely because I've done everything that I wanted to do in this episode, and the stuff that's around the back here and also the left hand side by the maintenance area, that all needs developing in future episodes. So this is everything that I wanted to do, and I'm really chuffed with how this has turned out. I mean, just look at this sightline and how awesome this now just looks, that you've just got something to look at everywhere you look. I wasn't quite sure about this middle bit. I didn't know what I really wanted to put in here, but I actually decided to put a games unit in. So, nice and simple. I've used these before. There's nothing really particularly special. I think there's somebody trapped behind there, and I don't know how they've got in there. I'm going to leave you there. So, I genuinely don't know how they've gotten in there. Should we have a look? Yeah, look. Oh, it's a janitor. You idiot. Anyway, so we use the game stalls quite a lot. You know, they are what they are. And nothing says monetize and screw out your people out of money as much as possible by sticking a games unit in the middle of a plaza. So that's what I've done. So over to the Insanity then. This has a name. It's now called the Ultimatum. I didn't want to do too much theming with this one. Likewise with all of the rides, actually. If you look at the likes of the Merlin parks and everything, they don't really theme the rides. They do have a theme, but they're not heavily themed. So you don't tend to deal with lots of ride skins. You don't tend to deal with lots of heavy theming, because that's Disney's job. It's not our job. So that's what we're going for here. So I've kept it nice in here. It's actually got a relatively long ride cycle. It's 1200 in Prestige, because these things just absorb prestige apparently. So when this park is busy, this is going to be an absolute crowd draw. Can't wait to see it. This is how it's looking from the back. I've decided to put some kind of like foliage and everything. Now, unlike the rest of the park where we're using lots of colours and flowers and everything, I wanted to keep this area because it's supposed to be western and very like wood style. I've kept the colour out of this, so it's all greens rather than actual physical colours and everything. And then we've got our scissor. This is now called Bushwacker, and this is all mainly inspired around like Wild West words and everything, so Bushwacker being the things that they do the tumbleweed with. So that's kind of what we're going for here. It was either going to be called Tumbleweed or Bushwacker, and Bushwacker felt a little bit more like theme parky, so that's what I've done here. I've put some floodlighting around because obviously I'm using the street lights here, but I didn't want to overdo it in the queues and everything, so you've just got some floodlighting. And like I say, this area at the back here, this is going to be the next development. So there's going to be a poll on the community tab that's going to decide what goes in here. I think you guys might like this one. So yes, head over there and you'll see what that is. Station wise, as I said before, I wanted to show you what it's like when it comes to life with Theme Maker's Toolkit. So I haven't done like loads in here, but it's just like real light touch stuff. So, you know, signs, and I've put a booth in, CCTV, bit of clutter. So yeah, this is how the station looks from the inside. I wanted to keep this open, I wanted to keep this clean, and I wanted to keep this clear. So that's exactly what I have done. Next then we come around, and I've just done all of the stuff along here. So, you know, like life rings and touching up of the pavements and everything. And this has really come into its own. This suddenly just came to life, and I was like, oh, I really like it. So it's the village. like I say, it's supposed to be cheap and nasty. These are supposed to be hollow. In fact, if anything, they would probably be fascias that would have some kind of supports that are on the back. But I actually wanted to make them a box and make them a thing, right? So I stuck with that. But I like how using few details can actually give a really good effect. And actually, it's Moomin that's taught me how to do that. Like watching some of the series that Moomin does. Just the amount of realism and detail you can get by using few pieces really does prove that less is more sometimes, and that's what I'm going for here. I'm going for this idea of this western village with a little bit of detail, believable to be a western village because it's in the middle of the ride. It's not the key theming area, right? So that's what I've done here. And I've used the mulch as the yellow, so this would be like bark that they'd put down that's been dyed to make it look like sand. And this is supposed to just look like the Western Town Square, so you're just going past everything. This would be a station. Whether I'm going to put a platform in, I don't know until I know what's coming in this area, so I'm going to leave it for now. But it does need some kind of sightline blocker, so it does need something. I just don't know what that's going to be until I build here. And that's because I don't know if I'm going to make a feature of this area. You'll see. Just go and see the pole. It's just so much easier just to say that. Maintenance area is done. We've got a roof. We've got everything done down here. And like I say, I don't know whether this is actually going to be kitted out and styled out. I think this is probably the boundary, the perimeter of the park. So I don't really know what's going to come here. You wouldn't put rides and stuff in here. So I don't know what's going to come there yet. So that's why this is still bare. Put everything in down here, so we've got floodlights, we've got the ride camera, we've got the CCTV cameras that don't stand up signs, the remain seated signs, etc, etc, etc. And then I've just also put loads of stuff in the pond. So I've done loads of foliage, loads of the weeds and the reeds and everything that would be growing up inside this channel, and that's a way that you can actually absorb some of the water, and it stops it from evaporating in the summer months. Is that you actually cover the water. It comes from the principle of over in California where they put the black balls in the reservoir. It actually stops the water from evaporating as quickly, and this is the same principle here. In the summer, we can get quite hot summers, and so I've put loads of lily pads and loads of these reeds and everything that would be around, and the water would then be retained in the lake. And then I've just done a little bit of tweaking with the rocks and everything. Not too much in terms of configuration. I just wanted to change where some of them were positioned and everything. And then I've done the same around here, foliage and lots of stuff. I've added splashes of colour every now and again, but like I say, I wanted to keep colour out of this area completely. I didn't really want to do a thing with it. The splash zone, I did toy with removing the splash zone and having it as a normal drop. I did almost commit to having that there, but actually I decided no. Even though this splash zone is far too big, it's not what you'd probably find. It's not similar to Colorado Boat or any of the other log flumes that I've seen that have got this kind of splash zone, but it's still ultimately a Planet Coaster splash zone. So it stays, I'm afraid, and it came back in. But I've just decided that I'm actually not going to do anything with it. It's just, it is what it is. And then I've done lots of lining around the outside of the pond. So I've done a bit of rock work, and I've done some more foliage and everything. I have splashed some colour here. I think I'm going to do some more colour here as well when I've come back and touch up the area and everything. Like I say, I need to know what's going to go sort of here and at the back to know whether there's any more decorating and stuff that needs to go in here. Bins and benches all around then, that's all done, and because of this being developed, I've not actually finished off this path. This is intentionally left as it is. It will have path covers and stuff that are going along here, but yeah, there's not really a lot to show you in there. And then we're going to come over to this way. Guess what we're going to look at? Ride photos. So I've tried to make this look a little bit different. I've tried to give this a bit of a more personality, because well, we're just doing ride photos so much, and every time they look the same, and I'm like, this is going to be boring for you guys. This really can't be fun for you to watch, right? So I'm trying my best. So yeah, I've just done a little bit of slight configuration. Rather than having these screens where they usually are. I've actually put them in the middle. I've put the tills the other side. We've still got the printers. We've still got stuff going on in here. And of course I've detailed on the inside as well. So you've got, you know, your boxes and your clutter and your fire extinguisher, all that blah 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 blah, all the usual stuff that you'd find in there. But yeah, that's ride photos. This is how the whole thing looks from the sky. I like how this has turned out, right? So yeah, like it's just the sight line as you're walking in is just perfect, especially when you come back from here and you've got the wooden coaster, you've got the log flume here, you've got the screaming swing, and you can see Insanity through the or ultimatum as we've called it, through the trees here. It's really deep. It's a deep sight line because it's a straight line, but it's not a boring straight line. I like this. Now, one thing I do need to point out, I've got this really weird lag, by the way, that my mouse takes about half a second to react to what I'm actually asking it to do. It's something I've put in this area here. I don't know what's causing it. Anyway, that's not important. You guys aren't here for that. So I've noticed that I've now got this dead space here, this dead space here, and this dead space here that now needs to be tidied up. And I don't know when I'm going to get to do that, so I'm just pointing this out so that you don't point it out and go, oh, you've got this horrid space. I know that that's there. I know that I need to fill it up, and it's probably going to be an episode of its own where I fill in all of the dead spaces that I have. I know exactly what's going to go in here. I know exactly what's going to go in here. I know exactly what's in here, and exactly what's in here as well. I just need to do it, but like I say, there's now becoming too much to do partway through an episode. So anyway, I'm going to pop some glamour shots in here so that you can see the niceties. So thank you for getting to the end of the video. You absolutely know that you guys rock for you getting here. Thank you for hanging out with me in the Premier chat as well. It's really nice to chat along with you guys. Hopefully that you like the log flume. Please go and check out the poll in the community. You are definitely going to like this one. I can't even predict what the winner is going to be, so let's just see how that goes. If you have liked the video, you know what to do. Leave a like, leave a comment, blah 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 blah, all the usual wind down of the video stuff. I'm going to stop prattling on because I must be boring you by now. So thank you everybody. Until we speak again, please look after yourselves, take care of yourselves, and I think we should go for a ride. Let's do it. Bye bye.